Hi, this is RN Bhaskar from Bhaskar Ki Business Baatein. And as always, this channel brings you policy analysis, interviews and stories. And this time, it is story time. It's a story about an old Parsi family. One of the best known Parsi families, not the Tatas. They came later. But this is a Parsi family that gave Bombay its very basis for growth. It's a story of Cawasji Jehangir, also sometimes known as Ready Money, Cawasji Jehangir. Ready Money is a family name. Cawasji was his name. Jehangir was also a family name. And gradually, the Ready Money was dropped and it became Cawasji Jehangir for the family. This family was unusual. Cawasji Jehangir was born in 1812. He died in 1878. He belonged to the poorer part of a larger family of the Ready Money family. His cousins are rich. But, like say, it sometimes happens in families, you keep the money with yourself, you don't want to share it with your poor relatives. And so, because Cawasji lost his father at a very young age, he became a child laborer. He began working in a warehouse. And in this warehouse, some people say he joined at the age of 12 as a child laborer. Some people say he joined at 14. And if you go to Wikipedia, it says 15. But we suspect it was around 14 or 13 that he became a worker in that warehouse. And what is a warehouse? Not opium, not cotton, but a warehouse of all kinds of things. And he worked there to keep an inventory of what came in, what went out. And he spent long hours working there because he was from the poorer side of a family that didn't have any money. Cawasji had three disadvantages. One, he had no money. Two, the gods had given him a body which was very weak. He suffered from gout for most part of his life and was always full of pain. And the third sad part was that he had no children. He was infertile. So in spite of this, when he went into the godown and started looking after inventory, his bosses, actually his relatives, realized this boy had genius. He was very good at managing things, and they promoted him to become the manager of the warehouse. He did very well and gradually earned enough money to start a warehouse of his own, and he became an entrepreneur. He was sharp, he was willing to learn, and he was willing to grow, hungry to grow. And so the boy then became a man, and he got married. And as I said, in spite of his marriage, he could not have any children. He knew how to make money, and much of his money came from being an astute money lender. But then, he didn't like money lending because it was an old practice with traditional ways. He wanted to modernize that practice. So finally, he decided to start a bank. And one of Sassoon's descendants agreed to finance him in the bank, and both he and the Sassoons created Bank of India. He created the first rules for banking, even which Nehru accepted very readily. He was a father of banking. And because he understood banking and money lending, he created the first draft of what income tax should be. And he's also known as a father of income tax in India. So he generated wealth, excellent at making money, and then he started dabbling in cotton also, which in those days was a very, very, very lucrative business. But again, this man was sharp. If David Sassoon anticipated the boom in the markets, Cawasji anticipated the bust in the market. So while everyone else went and speculated on cotton, he stayed away at the right time. He knew that the Civil War would end And he knew that the cotton which India was supplying to the UK would automatically come from America, and Indian cotton would lose its value, and hence the prices would drop. And so, while other cotton merchants and speculators in the Indian markets lost money and went bankrupt, he survived. His sense of judgment was brilliant. And when he started making money, he was always keen on developing Bombay, not as charity. He made money for himself, but having got the money, he decided to keep 1/3 of the money for himself and the remaining 2/3 for charity. But even as charity, he was not very, very willing to give money as money. He gave money for a cause, and the cause that was dearest to him was education. He was a very, very generous man, and also a very smart man. He knew very well that the British wouldn't last in India, and that is why he decided to focus on how to make Bombay strong and India strong. And the only thing he saw was education. Education would give Bombay and India the basis for growth. And so if we look at his contributions, his charities, the largest charity went to education. He was smart in another way. He didn't like to give money. So what he did was, he built buildings, he bought furniture, he gave them government bonds with a 4% interest, so that the government bonds will become a corpus, and they had to manage their yearly expenditure on the basis of the interest earned on this corpus. His contribution to education is phenomenal. He spent about 3.4 lakh rupees in those times. What is 3.4 lakh rupees in those times? One of the ways to calculate was to find out how much land 1 rupee could get. If you took that 1 rupee worth of land of those days, today's worth would be 20 lakhs per rupee. So, if you look at today's value, you find his contribution to education was almost about a whopping 68,545 crore rupees. But that educational trust was only one. Because he was a Parsi, he also created an endowments for Parsi madrasas. When the people hear the word madrasa, they think it's an Islamic madrasa. These are Parsi madrasas which taught education, especially language and mathematics, but also gave them a little bit of study about Parsi culture. And he contributed to the Parsi madrasas about 83,000 rupees, which in today's currency becomes about 16,000, 17,000 crore. Among his most important contributions to education was his endowment to the Elphinstone College. He knew Lord Elphinstone very well. So he persuaded Lord Elphinstone to let him contribute to what is today known as Elphinstone College. If you go in, you'll find a bust of Cawasji Jehangir there. Another major contribution to education was the University of Bombay. There are many claimants to who contributed to Bombay University. For example, Roychand Jaichand built the tower, which is known as Rajabai Tower, named after his mother. But the university itself, the largest contribution came from Cawasji Jehangir, which is why when you enter the university, in the lawns, you'll find only one statue, and that is Cawasji Jehangir's statue, and that is felicitated by the family every year. He also contributed to the town hall, to the university convocation hall. Just another example of how close education was to him. And then, of course, he set up many hospitals. We'll talk about that also later. And little by little by little, he invested in Bombay, and he invested in his people, and he invested in education. Cawasji also had another desire: to give to people some convenience and some dignity. And so, he built 40 drinking places, what they call piaus, where people could come and drink water. And while in the earlier days, piaus were meant only for the Brahmins or upper castes, he made sure the piaus were also available for untouchables to drink water from. Not only that, he made sure that piaus had a separate section where the water came out for drinking by horses and by cattle. He set up 40 such piaus in Bombay. All of them beautifully made of marble. But typically, with a government that did not understand culture during British days as well as even today, most of the piaus got stolen. One piau survives, and they say that this piau can be found in the Crawford Market in a room that is now used as a godown. So much for respect of culture. As I said, he came from a poorer family. He did not have any children, but he wanted his money to be invested within the family to bring about greater wealth for Bombay. So he adopted a distant nephew from a poor part of the family as his own son. This family had been rich once. They owned all the properties around Gwalior Tank in Bombay. But sometimes luck does not favor you, and the family went bankrupt. And this young boy, who Cawasji could see was very bright, he took him under his wings. His name was Jehangir, and he made him a successor. He adopted him as a son. So the next Jehangir that came in was Cawasji's adopted son, who was then knighted. And this is where many books confuse the issue. The first Cawasji Jehangir is Sir Cawasji Jehangir, sometimes added with the word ready money. The second Jehangir is his adopted son, who was then knighted and became the first baronet. A baronet could be transferred from family to family. So when you hear baronet, first baronet, it means the second Cawasji. If you hear the third baronet, it is the fourth Cawasji, because the first one did not have a baronet. And like his father, he also knew very well that it's never very good to be very close to the British. He kept quiet, he kept a low profile. And the first Cawasji Jehangir mingled with the British. While Cawasji knew that the British would not last forever, he was also aware that the British were the rulers. You can't make money without being friendly with the rulers. Moreover, he lived in rather turbulent times. That was a year when the Sepoy Mutiny took place. That was the time when he was alive that the freedom struggle, the first seeds of the freedom struggle became quite articulate. And so he realized it's good to be as close to the British as possible so that they should not misunderstand him, and his business could also grow. And that is why many people say that he was cozying up to the British. He had a strategy there. And the strategy was make money, be friends with the British, but prepare for a time when the British won't be there because they wouldn't survive. His son, his adopted son, however, lived in peaceful times. So he was more a recluse, wouldn't interact with the British, wouldn't interact with most people, stayed by himself, and he created his fortune in silence without advertising too much. Since Cawasji knew very well what it means to be poor, he made sure that the poor were taken care of. He created several foundations, and this list, which is long, which appears on your screen, tells you the foundation. As I said, his contributions to foundations are many. He respected all religions, but was very close to the Christian faith. He built the steeple of the Afghan church, and he contributed lots of money to St. Thomas's Cathedral, which is now enclosed to Fountain, the area known as Fountain in Bombay. If you look at the list of endowments that he made to various religions, you find that Christianity got the largest. He contributed about 24,000 rupees to Christianity, which in today's money is about 4,800 crores. His contribution to Hindu trusts and Hindu organizations and causes was about 15,000 rupees, which in today's currency is about 3,000 crore. And his contribution to Parsi institutions and Parsi causes was about 5,501 rupees, which in today's terms comes to about 1100 crores. You can see the difference. Christianity got 4,800 crores, Hindus got about 3,000 crores, and the Parsi causes got about 1,100 crores. No wonder the Parsis didn't like him. But they forgot that he also contributed to Parsi madrasas, which was substantial. So the Parsis didn't like him, and he also did not go to the Agyaris. And when he died, the Parsis sent out a message everywhere through tabloids and to pamphlets that Cawasji Cross had died. They were not sure whether he'd even converted. But finally, he was cremated according to Parsi rites. At the same time, the Christians are aware of what a great contribution he'd made to their faith. So when he died, St. Thomas Cathedral rang the bells to announce his death and had a mass in his honor after he died. When Cawasji Jehangir died, his estimated wealth was about 36 lakh rupees. That may look ridiculous today. But as I said, if you calculate the value in today's terms, he had about 7.2 lakh crore of wealth. But 7.2 lakh crore of wealth was not used on himself. He made sure that 2/3 went to charity, so 4.8 lakh crore went to charity, and the rest remained with him, which he passed on to his successor. As we said before, Cawasji Jehangir's concern after education was health. He created several hospitals. His total contribution to health was 2,72,000 rupees, which in today's currency terms would come to about 54,400 crores. And there's a story over here. The largest hospital that he built was in Hyderabad, Sindh, which is actually left in Pakistan today. And there's a nice story about one day how one of his descendants was sitting in his office when there was a phone call saying that there was a phone from the Pakistani embassy on behalf of the Pakistani President Zia-ul-Haq. This descendant thought it was a prank call and he disconnected. The call came again. And they said they wanted to meet him. Again, he thought it was a prank call, he just disconnected. And then one day, suddenly, he found a policeman at his doorstep, along with a Pakistani official, and he said, "This man wants to speak to you." So he said, "What is it about?" He says, "Do you have a photograph, some picture of Cawasji Jehangir?" He said, "Why?" He said, "Because he contributed to a hospital which is the largest lunatic asylum in Pakistan in Hyderabad, Sindh. At that time, it was perhaps the largest in Asia, but even today, it's a very large hospital, and Pakistan has made sure that his picture is there for people to see even today." Compare that with the way Bank of India respects its ancestry. His photograph is not there in the Bank of India Museum. When we wrote to Bank of India asking if we could take photographs of the two busts, we didn't even get a reply. Culture is something which Indians don't respect easily. And the case of Cawasji Jehangir, who was the creator of Bank of India, its first chairman, his descendant was a director in the bank. He created the banking manual. And he created the income tax laws in India. He's known as the father of income tax. And this is the respect Bank of India, Mumbai, and the government of India give to him. His contribution to health, his contribution to education, his contribution to the well-being of people is legendary. And yes, please don't forget to subscribe and say you like it. That helps us become more relevant to the people and to tell them about a rich history that India has, that Bombay has, that people who were generous contributed to the well-being of this nation.